Welcome back to the Better Men, Better Ball Player podcast. I'm your host, Trey Cobb. I want to thank you for joining us here on our 88th episode of the podcast where we get a chance to talk to Veronica Alvarez. Coach Alvarez is the USA Baseball Women's National Team coach. She's been at the helm since 2019. In 2019, they were the Team of the Year as well as she was the Coach of the Year in USA Baseball for her work. She's also been part of the 12U Baseball ID Series Task Force trial staff. She was also an assistant coach for the USA Women's National Team before taking over in 2019. She was the first woman to be named the USA Baseball Coach of the Year. She played with the USA as a national team catcher. When they finished in 2015 when the Pan American Games was voted USA Baseball's Team of the Year that year as well. She was part of the first gold medal. In 2019 and 2020, she also serves as the Oakland Athletics minor league baseball spring training. She was helping out there. She was on staff. And most recently, she was the Oakland A's roving catching instructor for minor league baseball. That's what she did previously in 2021, along with her USA Baseball women's national team duties. Let's get a chance to talk to just a number of things Coach Alvarez. Of course, she's got a very high background in catching, so we talk a good bit of catching. We talk about her program, talk about the women's national team. More about it for just people who just need to know it, just need to help grow the game. So we get into a lot of those things, and she helps clarify a lot of stuff and how we can keep growing the game, the great game of baseball that it is. But to talk about one knee down, she's got plenty of opinions about one knee down. What does it mean to frame, block, and throw as a catcher? Techniques. Give some drills. And we just had a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun with it and talked a lot of baseball for over an hour and a half. And so it was a really great conversation. Really enjoyed it. And Coach Alvarez, I can't thank you enough. Just like I can't thank those guys, Will Miner and the guys at Netting Pros, for making this podcast happen. Netting professionals are improving programs one facility at a time. Netting professionals specialize in the design, fabrication, installation of custom netting for backstops, batting cages, dugouts, scoreboards, BP screens, and ball carts. They also design and install digital graphic wall padding, windscreen, turf protectors, dugout benches, dugout cubbies, and more. Netting professionals continue to provide quality products and services to many recreation, high school, and college fields, facilities, and stadiums throughout the country. Contact Will Miner. Contact the guys Netting Pros at 844-620-2707 or info@nettingpros.com. Visit them online at www.nettingpros.com or check out Netting Pros on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn for all their latest products and projects. So thanks so much for being part of that Netting Pros family chat. Now, and again, so Coach Alvarez, USA Baseball, Oakland Athletics, dives into a ton of stuff. My notes pretty long, and just I love how she talks about her joint. She's got great information about some catching, and we had a lot of fun with it. So here she is. Enjoy it. Have a lot of fun with USA Baseball Women's National Team head coach Veronica Alvarez.
In the past, we were kind of limited to our opportunities to find girls that played baseball, and less social media was, there was less of social media to find them too and to get the word out. The opportunities for girls within the game to play with other girls were limited. And through the years, we've just been growing them. So it's been wonderful. Major League Baseball has invested into growing the game at the girls level as well. So I just came back from an MLB camp for girls baseball. High school age girls, it was called the MLB Breakthrough Series. High level selection, it had to be selected and invited to go to the event. 32 players, and it was just high, a lot of repetition, big on development, and just getting better at this game, right? So they can compete at a high level amongst other girls, and they can compete at a high level when they're playing with their boys teams. because most of them play on boys teams for the most part. So through the years we've been able to add all these events on, so we've been able to identify players earlier on. The MLB camp one, there's a MLB camp called the Trailblazer series, and that's for like 10, 11, 12 year olds. So the first one was in 2017, and so therefore I had a girl on my team that was 10 years old that I've been able to follow and see her develop for 4 years now. So it's wonderful to be able to see that and kind of keep up with them, stay connected, keep a relationship going, just so that when they get to the point where they could try out for the women's team or participate in a USA baseball event, they know what I'm about. I know more about where they're about, and maybe we're kind of on the same page. So if you think about it, it's almost like these girls camps on the MLB side and the USA baseball side are almost like a minor league development per se. We're trying to give them the same message at all levels, so that when they get to the highest level, it's not something new and it's not something that they haven't heard before. So allowing for the transition into playing on the women's national team to be a little bit smoother, and then some of them, hopefully, they get the opportunity to showcase their abilities and their knowledge of the game at a higher level away from the women's game too. So some of them want to play collegiate baseball. So we're hoping that we get them prepared for that.
So is that what you mean? Because that's what my question was. Like, when you say the highest level, so is the highest level them trying to play college baseball, or is the highest level like where you were playing the Pan Am games?
It depends how you look at it, right? Technically in women's baseball, the highest level is the women's national team. But we want more opportunities for them, whether it's amongst girls, which would be the ideal setting. They all love playing with other girls, right? They love playing girls baseball with other girls, because then they're just playing baseball. They're not the girl playing baseball, right? On the boys team, they're the girl on the field. But on the girls team, they're just baseball players. So at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters to them, is that they're treated like baseball players. So they definitely feel more comfortable on the girls' side. But the opportunities lie on the boys' side. So they have to do that in order to stay involved in the game, right? Getting the right amount of work to able to move on to the next level. So there isn't girls or women's collegiate baseball, and they want to play baseball. So if that means they have to try to play on the guy's side, that's what they're trying to do. So it just depends where their goals are. But most of their goals, the girls that want to play collegiate baseball, their other side goal is to play on the women's national team.
Sure. Yeah, I was saying they both probably go hand in hand. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. That was just good. I just loving to see how, and even like, so what is the best way for people that might need to just know how to get involved?
Yeah, USABaseball.com has a lot of information. There's a tab there for the women's national team. You could send an email and kind of just get on their mailing list for future events. Major League Baseball, same thing. MLB.com, MLB Develops has a lot on Instagram, on the site. There is going to be an email there as well that you send out, and it's going to, I could find it by the end of this podcast and give it to you. So if you wanted to add it in, but there's an email that you would send in, and then again, you get onto the database for future girls baseball events.
Cool.
And then Instagram, right? My Instagram or USA Baseball's Instagram. Yeah.
That's cool. Just want to be able to basically build the program up and keep growing the game. So it's important.
For sure.
Just to let everybody know and clarify all those things,
Yeah, it's really incredible to me that there are still girls that don't know that other girls play baseball, even with social media. Like, there's so much information out there, and it still blows my mind when we just had one. We had a girl at this high school baseball event. She's a really good player, and she came out of nowhere. This is the first time we saw her. It was crazy to think that, she would have potentially been at one of the girls event, the women's national team events that we had one like 4 weeks ago in Orlando. So somebody like that, if she would have known sooner or whatnot, had heard something, informative, then she would have had an additional opportunity to get better at the game.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why, I just, even for me to be able to speak on it and things like that, I think the more people that get to know it can speak on it. And, even guys guys are fathers, and their daughters are running around coaches' daughters are running around the field just like the sons are.
Yes.
So it's definitely something that is with certain people. So it's just good to know. I think it's great to
For
know. So
sure.
I mean, it was I just wanted to make sure that we definitely touched on that, and I think, like I said, the more we can grow the game, it's better.
Yeah.
Awesome. So would you say that's like one of the biggest challenges is just like that, like just being able to find girls? Or what would you say were like your biggest challenges as you continue to grow the women's program?
Our biggest challenge is definitely that in people's minds, women play softball and men play baseball. The separation in the US, really, mostly. In the US, everyone's so like brainwashed into thinking girls play softball, boys play baseball. So much so that I will be holding a baseball on a baseball field, wearing a baseball uniform, and still be asked if I play where I play softball.
Mm.
Okay. I was standing next to at this last 12U event I was at, I was standing next to one of the USA Baseball. He works within USA Baseball, but he comes to events and he coaches at them as well. Collegiate coach, all these, lots of accolades and a big background in baseball. But standing next to him, he had been at my women's event, and the umpire comes up to me. I'm on a field with baseball players on a baseball field in a baseball uniform. I don't know what else. I was coaching first base the entire time. I don't know what else I could do differently. The umpire comes up to me and says, "So what do you do?" And I said, "I am the manager for the women's national team, and I start like for the USA Baseball women's national team. I give the whole because I know they need to hear it, the whole lineup." And he's pretty much like cuts me off and he says, "Do you know Kat Osterman?" Do you, I, do you know Kat Osterman? I mean, I
Yeah,
don't even know if you know, but so he goes, "Do you know
softball
Kat
player.
Osterman?" Yeah, and I said, "No, because I coach baseball." And then he just goes on this whole tangent about softball. And so he walks away, and Jim, the guy standing next to me, he just goes, I go, I literally haven't touched, like, been a part of softball for 16 years.
Mm.
For 16 years, I have not been associated with the game of softball. And prior to that, if we add all my baseball experience, it's like, I don't even know, 32 to 8 kind of thing. Or not 32 because I'm not that old, but it would be, let's see, 16 plus, it would be like 22 to 8.
Uh-huh.
And still people are stuck on that. So I think that's our biggest, and I mean, I could line up the women's national team and each one of you could tell you 10 stories that goes along
I'm
those
sure.
lines. So it's just constant. And I heard it as a player and I know I'll forever hear it, but at the end of the day, I am willing to give the information because I want the game to grow. So if I just was mean about it or whatever, then that doesn't do anything. So I'll repeat myself a million times. But the point is that everyone's so it's kind of set in their ways, thinking that the girls play softball and boys play baseball, that it doesn't allow for girls to get the opportunities, right? So I again have heard many times that the girl she went to the baseball field to go to a tryout and she was pulled off the field and said, no, you got to go to that field. That's where the girls go, and it's softball. And at that point in your development, you're like, oh, okay, I didn't know that, right? They're like, maybe in the back of your mind, like, but I want to play there, but you don't have, the maturity to say that. And
Mm-hmm.
so then you kind of just get derailed to this other bat and ball sport. And nothing against it, right? I had a great career in softball. I got to college, I met great people, I went to Spain and played softball, but it's a different sport at the end of the day. So all we want is that separation for it to allow for more opportunities to exist.
Mm. That's awesome. I mean, like it's such a big challenge too. Like, so do you find it that girls have the same kind of, I guess, story as you had, like where they had to play softball, but they've always loved baseball, or are you getting into more where people are actually being accepted where they could play baseball on like their high school team?
Yeah, we have a mix. So I played baseball till I was about 10. And then fast pitch, I grew up in Miami, Florida, and fast pitch softball was taken off. And so I always say that fast pitch softball pulled me in more than
Mm-hmm.
baseball kicking me out. I was doing very well on the boys' side. I was, striking them out and hitting bombs. But I, the fast pitch softball world wanted more experienced players, so they grabbed me, and then I kind of just changed all my goals. Like every little girl that plays baseball wanted to be a Major League Baseball player, right? And so when I kind of took on softball, my goals just changed into being in line with softball. But we have a mix of stories. So we have some like mine, and then we have girls that never switched to softball. They played through high school, and then some played in college, and some took opportunities within fast pitch softball to get a collegiate scholarship. So our shortstop on the women's national team, Jade Gortarez, she didn't touch a softball until she was a senior, and she got a full ride to Texas. Right, so she's an exceptional athlete. But same thing with one of our outfielders, Kelsey Whitmore. She didn't touch a softball, got a full ride, and went to Cal Fullerton. So then the ones that just switched in college, some that played a couple years of collegiate baseball and then left it. So there's a big mix. Or the ones that just were always trained by baseball coaches but always played softball. And then later in their careers, like our second baseman, Alex Hugo, who played at Georgia. She's a big name in the softball world. She didn't ever play baseball, but she played softball like a baseball player. So she was a good transition. And when she heard about our team and came tried out, she had a heck of a year in 2019. So there's a mix of stories.
Yeah. When you say like that, like when you played softball like a baseball player, what do you mean by that?
You could tell, man. You could see a baseball player. It's just different hands. It's just different, right? Again, it's not taking away. Softball is a great sport. Great athletes play it. It's just a different style. Swings are different, right? I don't think they should be different, but they are, right?
Okay. So yeah, that's what I was going. That's what I was going. Like just to see like where you sit there, like because like you said, she was taught by baseball coaches. You know what I mean? So you make a different. So what is the difference there? Like why is that? So do you, and is that, I guess your experience probably plays well where you knew what people had been saying, I guess the type of swing, and then I guess you try to coach that out of them, or do you see things changing?
We don't take softball players. We don't, I mean, like you don't survive. If you're a softball player with a typical softball swing or softball style, you don't survive in the baseball field. Like it just doesn't cross over.
Yeah.
So the ones that we cross over that are able to make the adjustment are the ones who had typically baseball style swings and fielding mechanics. And then they made an adjustment. But it's hard for me to put into words, but if you see it, you know what I'm talking about. Being a baseball guy, you see it.
Yep.
And so there's certain differences in swings. Again, I don't think there should be a difference in the swing, but for some reason there are because people teach it that way. Same thing. I don't feel like there should be differences in mechanics, but people teach it differently. And so there's just like a different, I don't know, it's a different look completely.
Yeah, I find it very interesting too, of why the swing is different. Remember back in, I guess over 20 years ago now in high school, like, and even college, that just the follow through of a softball swing. I'm like, I just never was like, why would you do that? Like you're hitting a ball, like I don't get that at all. Like, I mean, so I guess another question for you, like, just it's a super great topic because I see guys, playing it different, but just how do you, man? I was thinking because maybe is it because of softball? There's so much of the short game. Now, did you bring that over to you, like with your bait, like you running the national team? Like, do you still have a pretty big small ball mentality? Do you still slap it? Do you still like to slap it and things like that, or is it just totally is it different playing baseball?
No, man, we just play baseball, but we play situational baseball. So I say we play old school baseball.
Okay.
Right. The girls' game mimics very much the older baseball game where we have girls that hit it out. Our second baseman, Alex Hugo, hits it out. Our right fielder hits it out. Our left fielder hits it out. We have multiple girls that can hit it out out of a standard professional baseball stadium. But that's not our game. Our game is to get them on, get them over, get them in, right? And so if they come up in a situation, they hit a home run, that's what they're going to do. But if they're put in a situation where we need to move a runner, those same home run hitters are capable of moving a runner in an efficient way, not necessarily just swinging for the fences. So yes, we still play small ball, but we don't play small ball like in softball. We play it like old school baseball. And then the other thing is, yes, I think some of the mechanical stuff in softball has adapted itself because of the short distance between the field. There's less time, it's more reactionary. So I think hitters are more up in front on their front side because of it, because there's less time for the reaction of it. I think throwers cut their arm slots short, right? They're doing some short arm throw that whatever I don't understand, but they do it because of the pace of the game, and so they've grown up through it. Whether coaches were making them do it or not, they've made adjustments to, I guess, to
The
combat
speed of the
that,
game,
right?
I guess what
The
you're
speed of the
saying.
game.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
speed of the game, and it's shorter. You've got definitely got longer. You're playing baseball at 60, 90. I mean, it's definitely going to be a little bit longer.
I think if you develop the arms correctly and the mechanics correctly, because I can't tell you how often I see people not being able to throw the ball with good mechanics, right, at
Mm-hmm.
higher levels, which blows my mind again. But if we focus on the mechanical stuff, then that means we have stronger arms. So then that means that you can go full arm slot, and it's not going to take away from the time. You're still going to get the out, right? So um, I think that sometimes in development, especially at the youth levels, right? We say, oh, they're not good at this. So instead of developing that part of their game that's weak, they just find a way to work around it, which isn't, I don't think, effective um, at the young levels. I think develop the side that's weak and then don't work around it, right? Go right towards it.
Till you're ready to play at a high level too. I think that's the thing.
Yeah,
Like you have a bigger mindset where you're like, I'm trying to get you to this highest level, not just be successful kind of where you're
right
at.
here.
You got it. You might not be successful today, but we're trying to get you to what the highest level. So which
Exactly.
means let's develop this, which it's more long term than it is short term.
Right, which is hard, right? It's hard to do that as a
Absolutely.
player. It's hard for
In
parents,
this
right, to see
society.
that. Oh my gosh, and like especially if you're like a private lessons person, right? Parents that are paying money, right? They want immediate results, so it's hard to accept that your child or you as a player might go backwards before you go forward. But that's part of development, right? We got to tear things down before we can rebuild at times. And sometimes we don't, but there are times that we do need to do that. So I understand. So I understand that's very difficult. And something that I give private catching lessons, and I used to give hitting lessons, and then I didn't love it as much as I love catching lessons. And then I get the whole I need immediate results, and definitely with hitting, it's not about immediate results. So I just decided I'm just going to go straight catching lessons, and I'm going to have fun with every single one of them.
Oh, great. Yeah. It's a whole nother maybe topic, whole nother podcast we could do with that.
I know we
Private
could talk about
lesson.
that for a long time.
Oh yeah. Um, I love that. Track your weaknesses and think more long term.
Yeah, we had like, I guess there's some analysis now that they like do almost like an on base U. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
And then so they're doing it at, I guess, youth levels in some places. And I heard a story that some 12-year-old, right? The coach told him that he had bad flexibility in his hips, so they changed his mechanics to work around it. Instead of, he's 12, like instead of like developing his flexibility or getting him stronger in the areas that he was weak.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like, I can't even believe that, right? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't understand how we do that to a 12-year-old, right? Instead of just giving them a stretch routine or running them through one, and then making them capable of doing what you want them to do.
All right. Or fixing it to let him, like you said, though, he might not be very successful right away, but you're just being patient, with that and understanding that his career is more important than this
Right.
season.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. So getting into a couple of those we can get into some catching stuff then. We can do that.
Oh yeah.
Because
I don't know. I don't know if B-Mad told you, but I could talk about catching for a long time.
Okay. All right. Because it's such, the one knee down stance is a lot right now. That's a big thing. Even the matter of when you prioritize maybe the three parts of catching, framing, blocking, and throwing. That's a big topic right now, and I love the thing that I got to read. I read a blog. Driveline put out a blog about that, and just kind of like where the priorities are, and I love being able to quantify things too. Like just kind of like how do you, what is your take on the 1 knee stance? What are your take on the importance of between blocking, framing, and throwing?
All right.
That's a lot. That's a lot. We can
I
roll
feel like Ace
down.
Ventura.
We can roll down the whole rabbit hole here.
I
So,
feel like Ace Ventura in the scene where he needs to take a deep breath to reveal the truth.
Well, let's just go
case.
one knee down. Like let's just go one knee
All right,
down.
one knee down.
Your
Let's
whole
hit one
take
knee
on the
down, then we'll hit
stances.
right.
Let's just go hit
All
on
right,
the stances. Your takes.
All right. I think one knee down has gotten out of control. Okay. I think one knee down has a purpose, and if you're doing it, I like when things are logical. I like when things make sense, right? If something doesn't make sense, don't do it. You probably shouldn't be doing it. Right? I want things to, I want the players to understand why it makes sense, because I think if you understand why and how it makes sense, then you're more likely to continue doing it. If you don't understand why you're doing something, then you might fall away from doing it, and then you're like, man, I don't really need to do that, right? But if you know the purpose, you're like, no, I need to do this I need to do A for B to work, or right, I need to do A and B for C to work. So, I think knee down has gotten out of control. Like I said, I think the pro guys, they can get away with it. Their pitchers hit their spots. They're more accurate. I think there's a time to do it and a time not to do it. I am not a fan of doing it with runners on base. I just think it really like locks us in and makes us less adjustable, and we need to capitalize on adjustability. But at the youth levels, a knee down, like when I have 15 catchers in front of me at the youth level, and I say, everyone get into your primary stance, and 12 of them go one knee down, my heart goes, oh no, right? Like, right. So then I go, okay, let's not go one knee down. Go to your a regular primary stance where you don't have any knees down. And like 9 of those 12 can't do it. How are we skipping steps here? Like, we need to walk before we run. Like, they need to be able to have, right? Receiving is all about our feet, all about our stance, all about our setup, our shoulders. So if they need to be able to get comfortable in their normal primary stance and know how to receive a ball and have the adjustability of being able to make adjustments based on pitch location. If they're locking themselves in with one knee down and they're with a 12-year-old pitcher who rarely hits the spot for a strike, right? Now he can't frame a pitch that was just slightly out of the zone or out of where he thought it was going to be, because now he's locked in. I mean, I could get on the floor. Like I like to like demonstrate this stuff because I think it's so telling when you see it. But when you go think left knee down, all his weight or her weight is on her right side or their right side, right? For the most part, the way that they usually go, right? So now a pitch glove side, they're kind of locked in over here because everything's on this right side. So they can't adjust to a pitch on the inside corner or wherever glove side that wasn't supposed to be glove side. Right? They're good here, they're fine here, boom, boom, boom. But the moment a pitcher misses, they're kind of, it'll create too much movement, and therefore the umpire will not give you the strike. I don't know. I'm not a fan of it for the youth levels. I like to teach it to an advanced catcher at the youth levels, but I want them to do it in appropriate moments. I want them to have a purpose behind doing it. Whether I want my pitcher to go lower on their pitch, right? So I want to give my pitcher a lower target. I would probably have a conversation with my pitcher at that point. Hey, you're missing 2 up in the zone. I'm going to go to a knee to change your perspective so that maybe you start going lower in the zone. I think I like that reason.
Yeah, I got that.
Right? Or, right, a low pitch. My pitcher is pitching low, and I want to be able to frame pitches lower in the zone. So maybe I'm having difficulty doing that from, 2 knees up. So I will go potentially to 1 knee down. But 2 strikes on a hitter, runners on base, I'm not a fan of it. I don't care if you're in that other left knee up, right knee down, angled. I could do the proper footwork to second base. I think that's, again, locks you in. Now you're not a good blocker. right? Because now I think blocking is important. When nobody's on base and there are less than 2 strikes on the hitter, our main priority is receiving the ball, right? So blocking doesn't matter, throwing doesn't matter. Blocking's extra credit at that point. So my setup has to be uh, done in a way that's going to make me the best receiver possible. So I need to be balanced. I need to have the adjustability. I need to be ready for anything. When somebody's on base or there are 2 strikes on the batter, now I can give up on receiving a little bit, right? I want to be a good blocker. I want to have good feet to second base. So if I go knee down, I kind of take away the good blocker part. I'm not as I don't have as good of range either. Sure, you could block the perfect ball down the middle, right? But the ones that are going to go off to the sides are going to be a little bit harder. And then I think that sure, it puts you in that kind of, I saw a video the other day, it puts you in that kind of perfect throwing position. But when are you ever that angled, right? Because then now when you take away from your receiving, which fine, we gave up a little bit, well, you don't want to give up all your receiving. And then 2, you kind of give up on blocking too. So I don't know. I think it's gotten a little out of control, but I guess 10 cents at this point, because 2 cents it was like 5 minutes ago. My 10 cents at this point is that I would do it at a minimum amount at the youth levels. I'm talking about like high school below, right? And I'm not a minor league baseball players too. The pitchers aren't that accurate, right? So being able to do everything is important. Don't just be on one knee because that's where you're comfortable. That's not good. Then that means that's a strength, and then that means your normal primary stance is a weakness, and that's what we should be working on, your weakness. So I just think you should be able to do everything.
You want to have basically the versatility to be able to go to one knee if you need to. Like you said, if the game presents itself, the pitcher's pounding low in the zone and you want to kind of get under the pitch and be able to present that better. Or like you said, missing up and I want to lower their perception.
Right. Mm-hmm. But the other thing, right, too, which the youth catchers don't realize, right, like going to a knee with runners on, right, like, okay, you could block from there. But what if the pitcher misses up, right, and the ball goes over your head? Like, it's really hard. You have to be in full ninja zone, right? Ninja, they like go from one knee down to jump up to catch this ball. So, like, that's not setting yourself up for success. We got to be a walk back there. We can't be like a low wall. We can't be like we have to be a wall, like an entire wall, not, So I just think the versatility of being able to do everything is important. Good secondaries, obviously. And then knowing why you're doing something.
The purpose behind the stance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, how do you buy into like where people would say, because I know the argument of like you're winning more pitches with framing than you are actually throwing somebody out, or actually blind, where you're doing that more, like that's going to save, let's say essentially get more outs
with framing.
Yeah. And that's I think that's the big argument about the one knee stance, because it's going to allow me to be a better framer, which essentially is going to get more outs.
One knee stance doesn't necessarily allow you to be a better framer, right? Like it locks you, like I said, it locks you into a set position. You become less flexible in a sense. You become less adjustable because you're so locked in and low, right? You're set in this stance. You no longer have the mobility of your hips, right? And not a lot of movement, but you do need a little bit of a movement to make the adjustments on the corner pitches, right? To cut corners when you're framing the ball. So sure, getting strikes might get more batters out, right, in the long run. But if your pitcher's struggling and there's a runner on first and that guy steals, don't you think getting out of that inning with throwing somebody out is important right there?
Sure it is.
Right? That's a game changer. Like that's a momentum changer. That's everything. So like being able to get my pitchers back in that sense, that's important too, right? Obviously, again, like I said, primary, main job, get strikes. Keep strikes, make ball strikes. In secondary, I got to give up a little bit on that just in case, right? We get somebody out on the bases, back pick somebody, whatever the case may be, block a ball that doesn't let a runner advance. That's going to help my pitcher out mentally, not just physically, right? It sucks to be a pitcher on the mound and the catcher keeps missing balls because he can't block it because he locked in on one knee. I'd be pissed as a pitcher.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We got to think about our pitchers' mental capacity because they're crazy, right? Our pitchers are crazy. And I say that in a loving way because I've always been tending to them as a catcher, but they're special cats. And so I want to keep my pitcher in a good mental space as well. So if I could do that by throwing somebody out, if I could do that by blocking something, then I want to be able to do that. So I need to set myself up to be able to do that.
I think that's a skill in itself. You think about the fourth skill, like maybe look at the sixth tool is how do you keep the pitchers in that good mental state?
100%.
How do you control the staff?
Yeah, that's so important. And like for me, I feel like since I was a catcher, I've been building that my entire life. So now as a manager, I'm able to do that. I feel like that's one of my strengths as a manager is like reading the momentum of the game and feeling the energy in it. And how do we change it to our advantage? But as a catcher, that's so important. I don't know if I sound crazy when I say that, but energy is so important, right? Like, and I feel it. Like I feel the energy in players. I feel the energy in the game and how it's going to change potentially to the outcome of it or the outcome of the inning or whatnot. So as a catcher, we have to be so aware of the momentum of the game, when to call timeout, right? When to break up the momentum or when to keep the momentum going. So I tell catchers, young catchers especially, like if a pitcher is working well fast, we got to make sure we keep them working fast, right? We get them the ball back quickly. We don't drop ball. We don't like linger. We don't lob it back to them. A pitcher that works fast wants that ball back. They want to get back on the mound. So we got to keep them moving. A pitcher that's moving fast, and maybe sometimes they do work well fast, but today they're not working well fast. We need to slow them up. So whether that's one time calling timeout, fine, or just like coming out in front of home, calling for 2 outs, right? Kind of slowing the game down by milliseconds, seconds, just to change the pace of it for that pitcher. Maybe in that extra second you took, you know, so not asking the umpire something or whatnot, that pitcher took a deep breath and now he recalibrated and he reset his mental game. So finding a way to be in touch with the feeling of the game is so important for a catcher. And a catcher that could do that well is a huge asset to a manager and a huge asset to a pitching staff. So that's definitely another skill that catchers present with.
For sure. Love it. I was wondering. I love how you got in a couple of those details. I was wondering, even just like as a manager, thinking about that. You're managing, the national team playing in some big events, and so what kind of things do you like to do when you're feeling the game get out of control, or when you're feeling like that we need to speed it up, we need to slow it down? What are some things that you like to do with the team?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like I said, a big energy person. So I want my team to stay energized. Like I'm big on roles, right? Everyone should know their roles, whether on a team, on a staff, or whatnot. I think if we don't know our roles, then we can't perform to the best of our abilities and whatever that may be in that role. So I really assign the task of my bench players. They have a role, right? And their role is to keep the energy at a certain state, right? Like if not that they're rah-rahing the entire time, but that they're keeping the energy positive and that they're staying involved in the game, so that if per se there is a bad inning on defense, when my defenders come in, that they're not coming into a dugout that's just like sitting on the bench talking about the weekend or whatever the case may be, right? That happens. We know a lot is talked about in the dugout, but we want them to be engaged to keep these defenders in this kind of more positive mental space, so that they can now perform offensively, right? Because if they just stay in that defensive mindset that just happened in that bad inning, then it's just going to carry over to offense, which we see happen all the time. So I think that the bench, the coaching staff, everyone plays a huge role in that, keeping that energy set correctly, right? And then, I mean, I'm kind of just like if an inning's getting out of control and just like a pitcher seems I'm a call time if my catcher hasn't. I've been lucky to have catchers that are well versed in that and have good feel, but the younger ones need to learn it. So I'll either tell them to go out there and just have a conversation. I joked this past weekend at the girls' event. One of the catchers had a really pretty nail, so I said, go out to the pitcher and tell her your favorite nail color, right? But whatever the case may be, not to bring the female into this conversation, but that was just like, yeah, it's just not even, we're not even talking anything technical. It's just breaking up the momentum, right? Yep. Giving them a moment to breathe. And so I think it's just that, right? Like finding places where we need to take a pause and take a breath, or we keep working because they need a pause and a breath, the opposing team, and we can't allow them to take it. So, but big deal is the bench, right? Like the people in the dugout, whoever you're coming back into, they're ready to receive you with good energy.
Awesome. I was wondering, like the first thing I went to my mind, you talk about, if my catcher hadn't already called time. So I was wondering, like, what is your take on, then calling pitches, like a catcher calling during a game, like, are you with your background, of course, do you feel like you need to call a game, or how would you handle that?
I love when catchers call the game. I think a catcher can be more engaged when they're calling the game. I think it's very difficult to call a game, so I'm not taking away the importance of it. That was one of my favorite parts about the game, was getting to call the pitches as a catcher. So as a manager, I don't call the pitches for my pitchers or the staff. I allow the catcher to do so if they're not doing it well, or we could talk about it um, inning to inning. We will, right? But we're gonna be leading up into that. They're gonna be calling pitches through training, through practice games, through whatnot, and then we're going to be working on that specifically. Why are we calling certain, sorry about that. Why are we calling certain pitches in certain times and whatnot, and how we work that. But I want the catchers to have that experience. I think they could lock in on, like, if they're getting signs from the dugout, and to each their own, right? But I just
Yep.
think for development of their catcher and the brain, right? And them seeing the whole picture of the game, I think it's better for them to stay involved in it. If the coach is calling pitches or whatnot, the catcher is really just so concerned about getting the sign from the coach and giving it to the pitcher that they're not noticing where the hitter's standing in the box, right? What are some of the hitter's tendencies? What were their on deck swings like? What are their practice swings like? What is the hitter's demeanor, right? All of these things go into calling pitches. What is my pitcher's demeanor? And I'm trying to, right, use my pitcher's strengths against this hitter's weaknesses, for the most part, is what I'm trying to do. So I got to find these weaknesses. If I'm locked into the coach on the bench giving me a sign, I can't find the weakness. And I don't think the coach can find the weakness either, because they're locked into the game in other ways, right? They were locked into the previous hitter. We don't have the ability at our level yet to have analytics, right? To have statistics based off of 100 games, but I still think that whether we have it or not, even, I experienced the minor league level, even if we have statistics, I think it's still important for the catcher to call the pitches.
Mm. Yeah, and even just the feel of the game, a lot of times,
Yeah.
and even just I think the philosophy of, like, are you going to pitch to the hitter's tendencies or lack of or weaknesses? Or are you going to pitch to the pitcher's strengths?
Yeah. Well, we got to play with both, right? Sometimes the pitcher's strengths aren't really strong that day. So
right.
we
Okay.
gotta
Depends on the day,
work
for
around
sure.
it. Yeah.
Right. Depends on the day, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
And again, it all depends, it's all, it's just
It's all
part
day
of
to
it.
day, which makes it great. You don't know what
Yeah.
you're gonna get, right? Like,
Oh,
you could have a stud on the mound, and today is not their day. And so we gotta figure this out. All right, we gotta pitch the contact. That's another thing. I feel like pitchers always think they gotta blow it by the hitter, right? Well, that's not necessarily the case. So you just pitch the contact sometimes, and sure, doesn't always work out in our favor. But I think they overwhelm themselves with the thought, especially at the younger levels, of I have to strike this person out. Right? It's not necessarily we need to strike them out. We just need to make them take a bad swing, right? Hit the ball poorly. So how are we going to do that?
mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's 9 versus 1.
Right.
It's 9 versus 1. It's not easy. Hitting it is easy, that's for sure. Oh, awesome stuff. Very cool. Other catchers advice. Oh man. I guess part of the. I'm just thinking of more catcher stuff that I just love to get into as well. Oh, I was thinking of like
talk about framing.
Yeah, like I was thinking of like because I can go through like a little game that I like to play with my catchers. Like, what do you do? What do you like to do to, I guess, help? Like, let's say you've got 2 or 3 catchers and you're trying to help evaluate them, or maybe create a competition between them. Like, what do you think the best? How do you do that?
Like the skill of the lesson. What? Like in competition, throwing competitions, like target practice more. like playing horse with targets between catchers. Um, Blocking competition where like the block is right, they keep the ball right close to them. That's 3 points. When the ball gets away from them, the points go down until it gets to a negative. I do find sometimes I have certain catchers that are very competitive, and they're not locked in until it is competitive. So I have to make everything in competition. Um, so yeah, I'll do blocking practice where it's all a competition or whatnot. But I love the target practice. Like after practice, we'll just have a target like 4 targets because without them noticing, they're working on their accuracy, being able to just like the idea of backpicking, right? The runner on second, third's running to the bag, and you're necessarily like leading the throw like a quarterback in a sense. So being able to have that control of your ball is so important. So I love horse for that reason.
Now, when you
like sometimes we play a cat, but I'm talking about.
Yeah, I like that. I typically that's a great little wrinkle there. You talking about like just throwing the run. When you think of blocking practice, is it basically like you're like drawing like a circle on the ground, trying to keep it as close to them as possible?
Yep. Yeah, and I just like little half circles. Like if it goes past home or whatnot, that's a one or whatever. If it goes a little bit, that's negative. Now we start adding negative. And obviously, that's not necessarily a poorly blocked ball. It's just that I want to challenge them to control it on top of it too. So once they got the blocking under control, I want you to control block. But yeah, I mean, other than that, like I don't know. I think you're already so competitive as an athlete, so if you're seeing somebody else do it right, like if I'm like, yes, honey, you got it right. I forget my cat wants to do it right too, so he's gonna try a little harder, So, I think it's just like that. I love to be a hype person. Like if you see me on field, oh, this is crazy, right? But I have always loved to be a hype person, and so I love to like build up. So I try to give them my energy when I'm excited about something that they're doing.
Yeah, that's definitely very helpful for sure. That's awesome. Um, so just thinking about some other just catching stuff.
Want to talk about framing? I got framing for you.
Oh, I'd love to talk framing.
All right,
Yeah,
let's talk framing. All right.
yeah, let's
Framing.
do it. So framing, what would you rank this like number one? Where do you rank this?
I think receiving is number one. That's our number one job is to receive the ball. So we gotta be good at it.
So you gotta do it every day.
We gotta do it every day. Receiving.
Every day, and the most. So like, what would be your favorite type of receiving drill? Like, basically, what do you like to do? Like, if you could do one thing, what are you gonna hang your hat on when it comes to receiving? That you just like, man, like this is if just every day.
All right. I mean,
that is tough.
I think there's so much, but like I like a few drills here. I like I especially like the donut glove. Have you seen it?
Mm-hmm. Oh, the one where
I love donut glove.
It fits in there and you got to knock it out.
Yeah. Right. I love donut glove because it really gives like pocket awareness and control. Right. So it kind of exposes some like weakness, like wrist weakness. When I teach receiving,
is it because like you might not be taking the glove, like taking the pocket to the ball?
Yeah. So if it doesn't hit the pocket, it like reverberates in the glove. It doesn't sound right. So if you hit the pocket, it's like it sounds right? Like a well caught ball. And then also, if you do this right, if you have like this weakness, or if you catch it at the thumb and it's creating that, or you just don't have strong wrist and the ball hits, it's gonna turn the glove. So the ball's gonna come down. You're gonna feel it. Really, so it's the stopping drill, right? Where you're working against the force of the ball with the force of your body and stuff. So you're able to find the pocket and then have good movement to it. I teach receiving as the thumb under technique. I think that's the one that makes the most sense. I think anything other than that, it's two movements, right? If I'm I don't even know what we want to call this, palm to face technique, right? I have to catch the ball before I go palm to face or whatever that's. I don't know what you teach, and I'm sorry if I'm going against any of your. But yeah, thumb to the right, thumb under the ball, right? Thumb to the ball kind of thing. I think you can consistently catch every pitch like that. Or you could catch a low pitch like that. You could catch an outside, inside. You could catch everything like that. So I like it that it's the same for everything. It's not, we're not changing anything for like inside corner, I'm going to do this. And outside corner, I'm going to do that, right? This is very consistent across the board. And then the palm to face, I think you're catching, and then you have to go palm to face, or right, or here, right? That's 2 movements. What's some other techniques some people are doing these days? I don't know what the other ones are, but I would say those are like top 2, right? This one and thumb under. And thumb under, I think we could create it to look like one movement by using all 3 of our joints, right? My shoulder, my elbow, my wrist. I don't only want to frame pitches or manipulate pitches by using my shoulder, because now that movement is big. So I can make it look like a smaller movement or a smaller adjustment by including the hinge of my elbow to cut corners. So if before, I'm mimicking this, and I know they can't hear this on the podcast, or see this on the podcast, but I'll try to explain it as well. But if I'm catching a ball and I'm a framer just from the shoulder to get it back to the zone, it's a big motion.
Yeah.
But if I'm catching the ball and I do a little bit shoulder, but with a little bit of elbow, I could catch and frame at the same time. So it seems a little bit smoother, less jerky for the umpire, right? We're here to deceive the umpire. So less movement, the better. At some point, we got out of control. And right now we're in an out of control state where we think more movement is better. And I don't understand it. But everyone, like, I think there's a lack of strike zone awareness these days. The strike zone is not the center of the strike zone. The strike zone is a box, right? I see it in my brain when I'm back there. And I only have to get the ball to the edge of the box. If the ball is outside of the box, it's not a strike. So therefore, I just have to move it to the edge of the box. I feel like right now we're going outside of the box to the center of the box, right? Below the box to the center of the box. So it's just like, I don't get it, because I feel like it was so obvious. Like, the biggest thing about receiving and framing and deceiving the umpire was less movement better, right? Mm-hmm. Let's make this look as sneaky as possible. So if right now I'm moving my glove 10 inches, to me that doesn't make sense. So I think that strike zone awareness is a big deal right now, and I see a lot of catchers that don't have it. So I think that's something that I work with receiving a lot, knowing where the strike zone is and how much I need to personally move my glove according to this batter to get a strike. And sometimes using cues, or not cues necessarily, but markers on my own body is key, right? So I know based off of how I am in my squat that the top of my knee is the bottom of the strike zone for most hitters my same age, right? So standard guy in the minor leagues, right? If they're all 6 feet or whatever, 5'10", I don't know what they are these days, but a good range of, or a good idea is, if you see a catcher squatting, right? If you're watching the hitter and the catcher squatting behind him, the top of the catcher's knee is usually the height of the knee of the hitter. So that's a good frame of reference for the catcher, right? I only have to move my glove to just above my knee when I'm framing a low pitch. And the same goes for, right? If I'm set up down the middle, usually it's my shoulders or somewhere within my shoulders on my body, to have that reference, not only based off the hitter, but also myself. I feel like that helps catchers understand that and cleans up their receiving. So I could talk receiving for hours and hours and hours. I love it, right? I feel like this is my favorite thing to talk about, is that. And again, I like that it makes sense when you think of it, but the hinge thing for me is big. Like, I think when we're just framing from the shoulder, we're not able to cut angles as much, right? If in my brain, when we're thinking about receiving, everything starts center of the strike zone, right? Out of the pitcher's hand. It starts center and it moves away from the strike zone. So if my hinge can bring it back to center without much movement, right? Instead of my shoulder doing it, and now it's creating more movement. I don't have to extend as far. It doesn't have to be as jerky, and I can catch it on its route outside of the zone by just hinging my elbow in, if that makes sense. Does it make sense? Because if it doesn't make sense to you, it won't make sense to a listener.
You're saying that your hinge is your elbow, your other one. So as you go with, not necessarily just my shoulder, I'm also going to go with my elbow to allow me to, like you said, catch the angle of the ball as it comes across the, as it's going out away from the strike zone, right? When it's angling from center and going away from the strike zone, I'm going to bring it back to the strike zone with the hinge of my elbow. And my shoulder. Shoulder's involved too, right? It's just not as big of a shoulder motion. So with both of them combined, we can make it seem like it's less of a motion. Now, will you
I would
work
love
on
to demonstrate this.
those kind of drills where you're trying to how do you help teach a person an understanding of catching the angles?
Catching the angle. So usually this was another marker thing, right? When I'm set up on the inside or outside part of the plate, usually the reference I'm using is center chest, right? My center of my body, the center of my chest is on the corner. So I'm really only framing balls that are like 3 or 4 inches with outside of that, if we think of it, right? If we
Okay.
can get a little bit more, we get a little bit more, but we're really just working from center chest out.
To your left shoulder.
We could start, right? If I'm on the inside corner, to my left shoulder. If I'm outside the corner, it's to my right shoulder. So when we're cutting those corners, right, think of that angle of not just extending my arm forward, but extending my arm back to the plate. I tell them extend it back towards center chest, if that makes sense. So I'm framing a ball that's just 2 inches outside of center chest. I'm going to, instead of just extending my arm straight forward, I'm going to extend it and bring it back towards center chest to cut the angle, right? So it's not just going straight forward. It's a hard one. Receiving is a hard one to explain when nobody sees what's happening. But I think, I mean, if that doesn't make sense, I feel like if you kind of walk yourself through it, then it starts to make sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what you're saying is that's like the shoulder with the hinge. I think even just understanding that whole thing and how it could move with everyone, even for a person to see that, I think that's pretty valuable. I just never heard it. I never heard it as like used as like the 3 hinges, and you really got to think about too, like it's also your wrists too,
Right. Wrist is included as well. 100%. Our third joint would be the wrist, right? And how we could help manipulate that pitch. I mean, I love the pre-pitch movement. It's been around for a long time. I've heard people say that it's something new. I was taught it when I was I don't even know, 5 years old to 6 years old. So it's been around a long time, but I think pre-pitch movement, again, it has its reasons, and not always do the young catchers know why it exists. But I think if you know why it exists, then you do it. But it really changes, again, the perception to the umpire. So if I don't have a pre-pitch movement, for instance, for those who don't know the name of it, is when catchers go down to the ground with their glove before they receive the ball. So some people go down to the ground. I am more of a just relax your glove person. But it's just the idea of I show target, I relax my glove, and now if my pitcher doesn't hit the target that I had set for them, I could go out and catch the ball, and it won't seem like it was not where it was supposed to be to the umpire. So if I just show target and I have no pre-pitch movement and my pitcher doesn't hit the target, it's a jerky motion to go where the ball is. It's an obvious motion to go where the ball is. And it may still be a strike, but to the umpire in that split second, he sees too much movement. He sees the movement going away from where it was supposed to be, and they may call it a ball. So I think it sets us up to receive very well. It sets us up to be smoother, more sneaky receivers when we have a pre-pitch movement. But of course, it has to be done with good timing. If you present your glove back up early, then you took away the purpose of pre-pitch movement. So it's a timing thing. So that with pre-pitch, that's where your wrist is really involved too. It allows you to really use your thumb and your wrist to get underneath the ball and just manipulate the pitch by that much more.
Mm-hmm. I like just like flex the firm, just something like that. Just basically pre-pitch, just because I think even like what you noticed, I always tell kids a lot of too is like boxers hands aren't always clenched firm, like they're flat, they're relaxed before they would move quicker, and then it'll firm up when it comes in. Essentially, just like hitting, have a loose grip.
Definitely. Yeah, it allows you to use the hinge too, right? If we go back to the hinge allows you to work against the force of the ball, right? So if I don't, right, if I'm locked into my shoulder is my only thing I frame with, and my arm's locked out, and this ball comes with a little bit more velo than I'm used to, or it has a little bit more movement outside of the zone than I was ready for, then it potentially I can't work against the force of it as well, and it kind of takes my glove out of the zone at times. So if I could incorporate my elbow and hinge it, right, use that force back towards the zone, I think you're going to get rid of those balls that sometimes you lose on the corners.
I guess that kind of comes down to some timing things too.
Yeah,
Like you
for
said,
sure.
you're able to catch it out there. You get stuck. Typically, you're probably just too early. You're
Yeah,
just reaching, trying to get
definitely.
out there. 'Cause that's one thing I have noticed. I guess recently is like I guess and it might just be with the certain movements things like you start not to see people like back in the like when they would stick it, you'd really stick it. You know what I mean? Like
Right,
you're not getting a lot of that. It's just like it's just kind of
right.
like right in here. But I
I
think what you're trying to talk about is like when you incorporate the three joints, you're going to get to that more of a full
You
fledged out
can,
stick.
right?
Yeah.
For sure you can, but it gives you the option to. So if you need to manipulate it more, if you need to cut more of an angle, then you have your entire arm, right? The entire hinge, the extension of your arm to do so. But you don't always have to get there. That's based on where the pitch was, right? You can get a pitch that's a little bit further out of the zone by extending more through it. Um, but it just gives you the option to do so. Right. So I'm not big on just always sticking the pitch. My out arm's completely extended, but
Right.
maybe the ball broke a little bit more, or maybe I have to just manipulate it a little bit more
You got to
than the
catch
time
the angle before
before.
it gets out of the zone, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I
Yes.
mean, because my thought also into that is thinking about your Oakland A's guy, you're roving instructor with the A's, and and then you just went to camp, with 12-year-old girls, or just baseball players. And I'm sure at 98, it's going to be hard to get out there and catch that angle, with a full motion using all your joints where you just got to, you might not be able to get there when a 12-year-old, would have that time. I'm just
But
wondering
you
what the
have that
difference
time
is
if
there.
you have the time if you set yourself up to have the time, right? If you have the time, if you read the ball right, if you start anticipating the location of the pitch. So I don't only call pre-pitch movement, I call it tracking the ball, right? So I am setting myself up to be able to receive this ball. So if I start reading the ball out of the hand at whatever velocity, right? As they get stronger, you get stronger. You get better mentally. Your perceptions are different. Your eyes are getting strong. Everything's getting better on you as you get older and you get to a higher level. So that made me think of something else. But so I think that you will also grow, right? And it's just about setting yourself up to be able to do whether it's 99 or whether it's 62,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because at 62, if you're catching 62, you're probably like 12 years old. So you're less developed, you're less physically strong, you're less aware of how to move your own body. And when you're catching 99 and you're 23, you're way more aware of moving your body. You're way more perceptive to balls out of the hand, movement on the pitches, right? Rotations on the ball. So I think that you just adapt with the pitchers. So, but it comes with practice. Like I'm not just saying it happens by chance, right? So um, it's about giving yourself the time. So when you're in that pre-pitch movement, you're tracking the ball either in or you're tracking the ball down, right, wherever you were set up. So you're tracking to make the adjustment, to be adjustable. So when I'm relaxed, right, and I'm reading the ball, I'm not just waiting here and I see the balls coming in. I'm not just going to be like a late receiving of the inside corner. I am going to start to move myself into a position where I've tracked the ball going in, right? Having a bigger break. I'm making the adjustment, and now all I'm doing is extending through it.
Hmm.
Obviously, in me explaining it, it sounds like I have so much time. You don't have time, but
Right.
with time, you learn to read the ball out of the hand. You learn to make those adjustments
Yeah,
quicker.
I'm wondering how do you help people because like especially with the thumb up technique. How are you helping people get to the glove side pitch? Like that will be the hardest one. You know what I mean? To be able to get, and I guess just the
Yeah,
efficient pattern of being able to take my pocket to the ball. Is to kind of
right.
just
For
what kind of
young
help?
for
Yeah.
young catchers, I do a drill with the flat glove that the infielders use.
Mm-hmm.
And for young catchers, I like to exaggerate motions. It's really just about body awareness. If you ask a 12-year-old to move their wrist uh kind of like athletically or side to side, they don't know how to control it. It's mind-blowing to me because you just did that naturally. You're just like, I don't know. I thought I could always do this. But I can't. And I'm saying this based off of all of the youth catchers that I've had do certain drills, and they can't move their wrists right with kind of like freely, I would say. And that goes with all body parts, right? They don't really know how to control themselves in certain ways. So a lot of my lessons with younger catchers is learning to control your body movements. How do I make this happen? So one of the drills I do is a flat glove catcher's drill. The flat glove infield flat glove. I give it to the catcher and I exaggerate the motion. So I have them start elbow up with their glove side on their glove shoulder. If they're right, if they're right-handed, which most catchers are, they're gonna go left arm, elbow up, flat glove at the shoulder, facing the shoulder, and I'm gonna throw a ball to that location, and all I want them to do is turn their wrist, open the glove towards the ball, and extend through it. And all I'm doing right there is teaching them how to control this, the hinge, the adjustment, hinging towards the plate, right? Because a lot of them will hinge away from the plate or hinge straight forward. So they learn in that second to hinge towards the plate. They learn wrist awareness, and then we shut it, like we condense it from there. We make it more realistic. So, I mean, I'll challenge them so that now they're showing target, relaxing glove, tracking the ball, getting out there and doing it. And then we'll go obviously regular glove and stuff like that. But it's really just about body awareness. When we teach the inside pitch, we're teaching elbow goes up, thumb comes down, and we're working with that same hinge, thumb under ball technique with the elbow hinge. I think that we can't lock ourselves. So I'm not telling you to show target with an elbow up, which some people do teach. I think that original setup locks us into that position. And again, my favorite word of today is being adjustable. So if I am locked into something, my elbow's up high, I cannot get a pitch that's going to break early. I'm not setting myself up to be able to adjust to that. So I like to teach showing target with the neutral elbow, right? And then we can adjust to that. I track the pitch in, my elbow goes up, my arm moves up, and now I'm working the ball back to the zone. Or if the ball's way out of the zone, I can just go out and reach for it, and I'm able to still get that ball. So it's just making those adjustments, right? Like mid pitch, which is part of it too. Some of them can't do the step by step at the youth levels where they're starting low and making a pitch adjustment, but that just comes with repetition. And finding drills to teach them the feel. If my drill doesn't work for a catcher, I'm trying to find a new way to teach them this. I'm big right now. My job as a coach is obviously not to stay in the loop with all this information and keep developing myself in order to develop players and be better for them. But it's not just about my knowledge, but also my words, right? How can I explain the same things a million different ways? So I'm big on that. If a catcher doesn't understand what I'm telling them, it's me, it's not them. So I need to find a new way to explain it. Or a new drill for them to do, for them to feel it. Because everyone learns differently. Everyone understands things differently. I was like 32 or something, 31 at the back end of my career. And somebody said I'd been hitting, and I loved practicing. I loved playing the game. So I wasn't somebody that just like sat, whatever, came to the game or whatnot. I was thinking about all of this at all times. And when I was 31, somebody said something that I was like, that clicked, right? It took me that long for this one person just to say something this one particular way, and it made it click, and it just helped me make an adjustment. So that's why it's so like I'm big on this. Like I take it to heart to find a million ways to explain the same thing.
Yeah, I think that's really key for sure. Telltale sign of a great coach for sure. Man, yeah. Well, you've had enough people say, so we're all just oh man. I know one thing, because I know we were texting about this, is like leadership and things like that. You said these things that you just love to do. I guess my question is with you is like, is it a matter of you loving it like personally within your own development, or like, because I'm wondering like how much time do you have with your team and things like that to talk about leadership and those kind of things that you do, like, or is it mostly just like little events that you get? I mean, do you get to spend much time, and then how do you grow leadership, and what do you really like about it?
Well, we don't get much time together for the women's national team. On a normal year, we might spend 4 weeks together, if that.
Okay.
So, in the last few events, we've had like, I guess the most recent event that was like normal, like timeline. We've had a couple that just were like last minute or whatever. We had an open tryout in January, so you get like 4 days there. But that's a mix of people, right? That's a lot of people. We're doing a whole selection process.
Right.
And then we cut it like our final tryouts usually have 40 people. So we have a 40-person tryout, and we had that like 3 months later. And we had that for about a week, which is better because even though it's not the final 20 or the final team, it's still 40 strong players that you're able to develop for the future, right? You get an extra 20 that you could potentially develop for later. So I focus on development in those events as well. It's not just a tryout. I want them all to get better so that it makes the game better, so that the best 20 have 20 that are just underneath them in ability or whatever and level, competing against them and making them better. So I think it's important to make everyone better.
Yes.
And then I think that, and then from there we have like, we go back, whatever, this year we went back home, and then we got together with the team, and we had a week prior to playing internationally. So it's not much time at all.
Yeah.
We stay in touch. The women are incredible. They love it, right? They have careers. Like, we have architects, we have FBI agents, we have firefighters, like, we have some incredible women. And they find the time to train on their own dime and their own time, right? They have families and everything like that. So it's a special group, and I'm very lucky to be able to lead them. But we started this thing when I was playing we called it baseballcations. I don't know if they still call it that, but I keep calling it that. And it's just when we all get together in a city that some of us a lot of us are close to. So one particular year, they went down to Miami, and 6 of us trained together for, a long weekend or whatnot. So they still do these things. They'll get together in Atlanta. They have a group in California and stuff like that, where they're just finding time to spend together, to get to know each other, off the field, on the field, and just get each other better. I think most of my leadership and my involvement with them, some of them I played with, so some of them experienced me as a player. And I was a catcher, I was a veteran on the team, so it was they saw me as a leader at that point, and they're very respectful, even though we were teammates at one point, of myself being a manager now. So I think they know that I am all in it, and I'm in it for them, right? I want them to have success. And so I think that's what keeps this strong, and I think that's what gets them performing at their top level, right? They know that I have the best intentions for them, and I want them to succeed. So, and I'm all about the team. Like, if it doesn't help the team, it's not happening, right? If somebody doesn't help the team, you're not joining us. Like, it doesn't matter if you're the best hitter or whatnot. It's about the overall, the overall success of the team. So, I try to, on my side, I try to be a leader just by staying in touch with them and keeping personal relationships with them. We are all people, and we all matter. So, and then on their side, I think they take ownership of being like veterans. They want the best for the team as well. So they really hold each other to high standards. They have high standards for the young ones that come in, and they're not willing to give up on traditions, on the culture of the team, on success, just for personality or whatnot. So, or to fit somebody's personality. So they really hold each other to some high standards. So, and they're not scared to talk it up, right? And they all are leaders, which is important because everyone leads in a different way. So everyone in some way is a leader on that team.
I think it's safe to say almost every team, but absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you a quick story to give you the feel of the women's national team. All right, here we go. This is the vibe that was always happened. So like I said, I'm very lucky to lead them. very passionate, very invested in this. And if you don't, I don't know if you know this, but we sometimes only play every other year. So they'll stay
I didn't
involved.
know
They'll
that.
stay in shape for a World Cup that's not going to be here for another year. So right now we don't know when our next one will be, but anyway. So women's national team always gives 100% when they get on the field. Like I've never had to ask the women, the veterans, to play with more intensity. It's mind blowing when you see it, right? Because I've been in pro ball and minor league level, and that's not necessarily the case. It's not, and they're getting paid to play the game. So, so women's national team, they came on a baseball vacation to Miami. I have 6 players out there, and we try to capitalize on any resource we can get. So we don't always have them. So this particular high school is letting me practice with them this year while I was training. It was awesome. I was like a high school boy for 3 months. It was incredible. I'd go to their practice every day after work and spend 4 hours out there with them. But they let me use the facility. And so this particular weekend, 6 of us were there using the cages. There was a father on the field hitting his ground balls to his son. And so I was like, let me take advantage of this. I said, hey, sir, do you need a first baseman? And he's like, so your son can throw across the field? And he's like, sure, yeah. Put her out there. So my first baseman, who's our leader, our team captain, veteran, she gets out there. And then a few minutes will like, do you mind hitting my third baseman some balls? So my third baseman goes out there and he's hitting ground balls to my third baseman. So a few minutes pass by. He hits a ball up the middle to his son that's playing shortstop. The son doesn't dive for it. He lets it go. The dad says, oh, you would have dove in for that in the game, right? And the kid's like, yeah, I would have gotten that. Okay. So am I allowed to curse here or not?
It's up to you.
All right. I'm going to curse. And you can bleep it out if you want.
Okay.
So next hit, perfect timing. Next ball, he hits it to the third baseman up the line. She dives, gets up, throws it to first base. Next ball, he hits it in the 4-hole to the first baseman. She dives, gets up, runs it back to the bag. The dad says, oh, wow. And she goes, I don't got time to wait for the fucking game. Right? Like, that's the intensity that they play with. They take every opportunity that's given to them, and they take it and do the most with it. And I can't ask for more. My ginormous dog just got
Great Dave.
He's not allowed on the couch. We just took it away from him.
That's a big old dog too.
Yeah, he's huge. He's massive. Yeah. Bud, go back to your bed. Oh my gosh. This is Biggie Smalls.
Biggie Smalls. Nice.
He weighs 160 pounds. Bubba, go back to your bed.
Gosh. What a
yeah.
That's cool.
But yeah, that's the intensity that they bring, and it's incredible. So when our coach, the male coaches that have never experienced it, come out to trials, usually they come in kind of open-minded, but they don't really know what they're gonna get, maybe skeptical, some of them, and then they get that and they're like, what is this? Right?
Yeah.
Like they're like, this is like, right? That's what you want as a coach.
That's what you want. That's all you can ask
That's
for.
what you want, right? Like that they're locked in. Like you tell them something, they take it in, they go do it. They don't.
Yep. I mean, I could say like just the experience I've had in high school. Like I was a high school coach for 11 years, and you're just talking to coaches that I know and have a lot of respect for. You know guys that just run good programs. So then these guys would run. They coach girls, and it would just ask like, because he had coached. I remember they coached some boys, and they said the biggest difference in boys and girls, you know what you're going to get with the girls. Like you're going to get it. They're going to bring it for the most part. Like that's the thing with the boys. Sometimes it's just you just get guys that just. For whatever the case is, that's one thing you definitely do see. You see most of the time that you're going to get what they're almost like they're going to reach their potential. They're going to give you everything that they got.
Yeah.
That's the difference that I've seen at the high school level.
Definitely.
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, even if we just had the camp I was just at for MLB, we had Cliff Floyd coaching. We had LaTroy Hawkins. We had Luke Collier coaching, and then the women, some of the women that are big names as well. We have Bianca Smith from the Red Sox. That's one of the female coaches on the minor league system. We had Ronnie Gajownik that coaches the D-backs. She just got a coaching job with them. She was a former women's national team player. We had Amanda Sartors, who's the strength and conditioning coach for the Miami Marlins. I'm going to name them all because they're all important. I can't just leave them out. So
So
you do what you want with it, but they're all important. And then
they'll
Alex
be on there.
Oglesby was there. Oglesby was my assistant in 2019. I've worked a lot of MLB camps with her as well. She also was a former player on the women's national team prior to me joining. Maggie Meidlinger is currently still a women's national team player. She's an architect on the side just by, for fun. And then we have Kelsey Whitmore, also still a women's national team player. She's a center fielder pitcher for us. She played with the Sonoma Stompers, and she's a baller. She's like legit, right? She's locked in. So we had this incredible coaching staff. And LaTroy was the first day we're talking about, pitching and having enough pitching for the entire week or whatnot, 4 games. And he's like, oh, we got to be careful with arms and just be careful because we might run out of pitching. And I didn't understand his perspective. I was like, no, we'll be fine. Like, we'll be fine. We'll be careful with their arms. We'll have a pitch count. But we'll be fine. And he's like, nah, what if one of them comes up to us and says that they don't feel like pitching anymore? I was like, oh, no. That's not going to happen. And he's like, what do you mean that doesn't happen? He does all the boys camps. And I was like, that's not going to happen. Like, their arm will fall off before they let us tell them they can't pitch. Like, we're going to have to stop them. Right. And he's like, what? He couldn't believe it. Like he's like, no, they don't. You mean that if they have 3 perfect innings, they don't say my arm is sore, coach, I don't want to go back in? You're like, no, that would never be the thing. Right. So anyway, one of the games. So he was like, oh, that's not the same. So that's how I didn't understand his perspective, but I was like, oh, we'll be fine. We were fine. To go along with that story, one of the catchers on my team I didn't know this. She has asthma. The game's happening. She's having an asthma attack. She looks at the coordinator of the event and she says, Liz, I need my inhaler. And she's like, right? She's there back there still squatting, going for the next pitch. And Liz is like, oh, shoot. So she goes, gets the inhaler, brings her back. And I go, hey, I can take you out of the game. Don't worry. Put somebody in. She goes, no, coach, I'll be fine. I'll be fine, coach. I got it. I did my inhaler. I'll be fine. She's willing to have collapsed lungs before she gets taken out of that game. So.
Yeah, you love it. Love the intensity. It's awesome.
No, yeah, that's the best.
Yeah, it is. It is. And like I said, that's all you can ask for as a coach. It's awesome.
Yeah.
People all definitely can learn a lot from that. For sure. Well, this has been all. I mean, I don't want to keep you too, but it's already been an hour and a half. Man, we've been on here since 8:30 now.
I told you I could talk about things for a long time.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. This is what it was. It was a good conversation. That's what we said. That's all we could promise for. That's all we were trying to have is a good conversation. So I really appreciate it. It was awesome. Anything else to know more, talk more catching? What's the best way to reach out to you? Maybe some things that you're putting out. What's the best way to get in touch with you talk more about this?
Yeah, I mean, I have an Instagram, Veronica O Alvarez. That's I'm not necessarily a drills poster on there.
Okay.
But if you send me messages or whatever you want, we start a conversation, then I'm down.
Okay. You said it's just Veronica Alvarez?
It's Veronica O Alvarez, the letter O. On Instagram. I have a Twitter, but I'm not very good at it. Yeah. So I go on and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I don't even know. I see 10 things that I was potentially tagged in or something. I don't even know what it's called. So, but Instagram's the best way to reach me. Then we can start a conversation. But yeah, I love talking catching. I love it at all levels. I obviously have a lot of opinions about it, as you heard for the last hour and a half. But yeah, I just, I'm open to anything.
Well, that's great. It's awesome. I really appreciate it. It was really good. Really good.
Yeah. I've been able to meet some good guys, right? Good guys, good women in this game. So I appreciate them all. But I love, the guys the women, we've known each other for so long and we get along and all these things. But it's fun to see these guys, I don't know, open up and see and build relationships with them. And we get to share so much knowledge back and forth, which is one of my favorite things. So that's something I get, and I didn't talk about really, but within the A's organization, I really love is that they do a lot of coaching development. I feel like the people there really love the game of baseball and developing players. So there are constantly conversations happening about the game at all times. Like it's fun. It's fun to be at games with the guys, with the coaches, and what just having conversations about baseball, like you said. Right, we're sitting in the dugout while the game's evolving, right? And we're talking about the situations and how we could be better for the players, how the players can be better, how we could be better. So it's a really awesome environment to be a part of. But I've gotten that with all the guys at the USA camps that I've been involved with as well. And the women are the same. The women are all talking baseball at all times. So it's fun to be able to have all these experiences and bring it back to the ones that haven't been given the opportunities that I've been given. But it really creates a good environment where we can all get better.
Where we can all get better. Coach Alvarez, just loved how she put it there at the end. Just trying to, for us all to get better. That's what this is all about. So it's just, it's funny how people come into your life and being able to have these relationships, and as Sheets would say, is win the people war, win the people battle, and through this and the relationships, through R.J. Farrell, Brian Madsen, Tanner Vesley, Wes Brooks, started with Wes, Butch Chafin, all these guys. They led me to Veronica, and she'd be a great guest for the show, and just being able to talk some baseball with her, talk more specific, lot of details with catching today. I haven't really got into a lot of details with many guests, and willing to talk some baseball and talk framing, talk blocking, talk throwing, and just a great opportunity to learn, and it's okay for people to have opinions about the one knee down. It's okay to hang your hat on certain things, and that's what's great about the game, is that one person can be successful, and we all can be successful in different ways with different philosophies. But you gotta own it. You have to hang your hat on something and do the best you can with what you have. And I even just love how she also talked about just she's trying to find a million ways to say the same thing, to get across a specific point. That's what good coaches do. They find different ways of saying things, and you have that by having conversations with coaches. And even though you might not agree with certain things, or you might do it a little different, you're still open to talk about it and maybe say something. But I love the logic too behind the different stances and doing things for a certain reason. I think there's really value in there. With most guys are, we have no problem standing up when a guy wants a high fastball. Well, what about going to one knees down stance when we need to get the ball down low, or pitcher's dominating the lower half of the zone and we got to try to bring it up? Changing the perspective. I think those logical things are really smart, and I think that's what good catchers do. Because I think at the end of the day too, like, the catchers have to be able to read the pitcher and manage the staff, and that's all part of it. So, great stuff by Coach Alvarez. And I'm glad we got a chance to connect, and we've been working on it here for a couple weeks, and it was nice to be able to do that. She's been a hectic schedule. I know she was just at 12U trials and helping out with them. So I can't thank her enough for taking some time, and even in different time zones and everything. So, and again, thank you guys for hanging on with us. Thank you, Will Miner. Thank the guys at Netting Pros but again, special thank you to Veronica Alvarez for coming on the podcast and giving up her time to do that. Follow her on Instagram at Veronica O. Alvarez. Check out USA Baseball website. Keep following them. See how we can get more people involved in the great game of baseball. So until next week, keep getting better.